Hello everyone, and thank you for attending the Summer Ruby event. I am Professor Pyro Garnet, and today I'm here to showcase an original, built from the ground up tabletop RPG system called the Paradigm RWBY system, made by a wonderful person by the name of Paradigm, and playtested by yours truly, among some others. For those unfamiliar, a tabletop RPG is a role-playing game where one creates a character from their own imagination, alongside some friends making their own characters, to participate in an adventure run by another player, referred to as the Game Master. The Game Master is the one responsible for crafting the setting, story, non-player characters, and challenges the group of players, called the party, can face. Though, the backgrounds and actions of the players are also important to help craft a deep and interesting game, which as a whole is called a campaign. But rather than having an adversarial relationship, the Game Master and players are working together to make an experience that is satisfying and exciting for all. Systems like these often also use dice to introduce an element of chaos and the defiance of expectations to the story, leading to twists and turns that can create something unique and unforgettable. For the Paradigm RWBY system specifically, things are taken a step further. Whereas many systems leave the roleplay and social interactions of the characters separate from combat, the Paradigm system blends both roleplay and mechanics together into a game where both strong builds and strong roleplay can work hand in hand to lead to success both in and out of combat. The first thing we'll be covering is how to make a character, then following up with a quick overview of how to play, before giving a little snapshot of some of the specific options in the system to round out the video. To help me explain all of this, as I may or may not be severely in over my head here, is a good friend of mine, and a huntsman that you just might be familiar with.
Greetings, this is Crow Bronwyn speaking, and we would want to thank you for tuning in to our brief introduction to Paradigm's tabletop RPG system. With formalities out of the way, let's get you started on creating your character for this game. Here's what you need to know. Pick a name for your character. In Remnant, names are usually based on colors. Could be first or the last. What does your character look like? You paint the picture. How old is your character? Huntsmen and huntresses usually start training in their teens. Which kingdom are you from? Vale with its diverse population, Vacuo's harsh desert, Mistral's artistic east, Atlas's frigid militarism, or maybe a village outside of the major kingdoms. Or perhaps you're a faunus from Menagerie, away from human discrimination. And what does your character identify as? What's their gender? Who are they? And how does your character act? Their quirks? What makes them tick? What makes them happy, mad? All that. And for their history. Perhaps you should break down your character's past into 3 major events: their early life, midlife, and present day. And, above all, get creative. And let's see who you bring to life into this world. But hold up, champ. That doesn't mean we're entirely done. There are things called attributes, and they are essential at forming what your character is good at and where their talents lie. They are categorized into 6: strength, agility, endurance, perception, willpower, and discipline. I shall explain what each of these are, so buckle up. Strength. It's all about muscle power, your ability to perform physical tasks and overcome obstacles with sheer force. This attribute is your go-to if you're aiming to excel in melee combat or just being a well-rounded meathead. Whether you're breaking down doors, lifting heavy objects, or just trying to overpower your enemies, strength is what you rely on. So, if you see yourself as the type who likes to get up close and personal in a fight, make sure your strength is top-notch. It's what separates the heavy hitters from the rest. Agility. This attribute is about your ability to move quickly, precisely, and with finesse. When you need accurate and delicate maneuvers, agility is your best friend. Agility is also key if you prefer to keep your distance and excel in ranged combat. It's what lets you hit your mark and dodge incoming attacks with style. Plus, it boosts your movement speed, letting you zip around in the battlefield. If you fancy yourself as a sharpshooter or someone who's light on their feet, crank up your agility and watch yourself dance through any encounter. Endurance. This attribute measures how much punishment you can take when your aura is down, and how long you can keep going when things get tough. Endurance is crucial when withstanding hazardous environments and physical trauma. If you got high endurance, you can sure shrug off hits that could leave others reeling. Plus, endurance directly affects your health points. More endurance means you can take more damage before you drop. So, if you plan on being the last one standing when the dust settles, make sure your endurance is on the top of your priority. It's what keeps you going when the going gets tough. Perception. It's all about being aware of your surroundings and staying one step ahead of danger. Perception helps you spot weaknesses in your enemies and seeing incoming attacks before they even land, making it easier to defend yourself. It also sharpens your intuition skill check, giving you an edge in understanding motives and sensing threats. So, if you want to stay alert and keep yourself and your team out of trouble, boost your perception. It's what keeps you sharp and ready for anything. Alright, let's talk willpower. This attribute is all about your mental strength and inner grit. Willpower gives you the power to influence others through the complexities of this world in handling both aggressive and delicate social interactions. It's also crucial for manipulating a semblance. Plus, your willpower contributes to your aura points, that all too important power of the soul that every hunter relies on. It also affects how strong your resolve skill check is, giving you the backbone to push through tough situations. If you want to be the one who can lead, influence, and stand unshaken, focus on your willpower. It's your key to mastering both yourself and the world around you. Last but not least, discipline. This attribute is all about your ability to stay studious and smart. Characters with high discipline can show exceptional form and finesse when wielding dust. They're able to give their allies an attack boost and bolster their defenses, kind of like a certain Schnee I know. No, not her. This attribute is key to true dust mastery and to becoming quite the brainiac. It's what makes the difference between a novice and a true expert.
So, speaking of true experts, each of these attributes, save for perception, which forms the foundation of your defensive skills, has another purpose: to help inform you when crafting your weapon. A huntsman or huntress's weapon is not only an integral part of their fighting style, but a representation of who they are. Though too diverse to define in specific terms, every huntsman's weapon can be categorized into one of a series of weapon forms that denote its style, general function, and, most importantly, which attributes go into wielding it effectively. With rare exceptions, your weapon will include a melee form and a ranged form. The melee aspect of your weapon relies on a combination of your strength and another attribute depending on its form in order to attack powerfully and accurately. Meanwhile, the ranged aspect of your weapon will measure your agility alongside another secondary attribute to handle with finesse and to place your shots right on the mark. Some melee forms are aggressive, relying on your endurance. Others are perhaps precise or elegant, relying on agility or your discipline respectively. There are even some weapons out there that are attuned to one's willpower directly, representing mind over matter in the truest sense. As for ranged forms, you have your automatics, pistols, snipers, and energy-based weapons that rely on your discipline in addition to your dexterous agility. In the same vein as attuned melee weapons, there are also linked ranged guns fueled by one's aura and willpower. For the less precision inclined, however, there are also, of course, shotguns, heavy automatics, and explosive launchers that can be worked into one's weapon, requiring either endurance or strength to manage recoil and heft. Lastly, there are also more non-conventional ranged weapons, and whether you wield a bow and arrow or an honest-to-goodness flamethrower, discipline will again be your friend here. Now, beyond traditional melee and ranged forms here, there is also the option to carry a shield or aegis, a weapon to augment one's defenses that can be worked into a weapon in lieu of a ranged form, or perhaps in addition, depending on your choices later in character creation. Then, besides all weapons entirely, there is the option to eschew your weapon and dedicate oneself entirely to dust. Known as dust weavers, these huntsmen and huntresses take their discipline to a different level, manipulating these elemental crystals to fight whether they find themselves in melee or at a distance. And depending on the form your weapon ultimately takes, you will gain a relevant amount of capacity. Capacity is a dynamic resource in the system that I think my friend here, Mr. Bronwyn, has a great deal of first-hand experience with.
Thank you, Pyro. I can take it from here. Now, let's talk capacity. This is the resource that shows how much ammo your weapon can use before needing to reload or recharge. It's crucial for a few things. First, you've got capacity boosting, which makes your attack stronger by adding an additional 1d3 to your roll. Then, there are charge attacks, powerful moves that pack a punch but need more juice. They require 2 major actions and can use up to 3 points of capacity, each one adding a 1d2 to your attack roll and to your damage. But wait, there's more. Capacity boosting doesn't only enhance your attacks, but they also enhance your defensive capabilities and dust skill checks, adding that additional 1d3 bonus whenever you're in a pinch. If you got specializations in dust, you can do even more. Use dust skill checks to create unique effects or infuse your attacks with dust to add that elemental punch. Keep your eye on your capacity though, because you can only carry so many reloads, and running out of juice in the middle of a fight can spell trouble. Manage it wisely and make every shot count.
Hello again. In addition to capacity, there is of course the total amount of aura points and health points your character possesses. Aura is determined by a combination of your will and discipline stats, while HP is merely just a function of your endurance. A strongly trained aura is a huntsman's best defense against the creatures of Grimm and any other adversary you happen to come across. Be warned, however, that although one's aura can take more punishment than any living person could without it, there are some unique and extremely dangerous threats out there that aura cannot protect against. If you ever find yourself in such danger, or stripped of your aura after taking too much damage, you'll need to rely on your raw physical ability to see you through. As you create your character, you'll also choose some specializations for them. The specializations are unique characteristics and advantages that your character can leverage to gain an edge both in and out of combat. The specializations are broken up into a few different categories. The main ones are character specializations, weapon specializations, and if you're a faunus, you'll have a few more options with faunus specializations. When building your character, you'll select any combination of these bonuses, totaling 3. In addition, there are also negative specializations, representing difficulties or weaknesses that can help make your character more nuanced and interesting. Alright, I have a feeling that some folks have been waiting for this one. Semblances are, as some might know, the manifestation of one's soul, a unique, super awesome individual ability that every single person with aura is able to unlock should they train hard enough and find the path to be in tune with themselves. In the system, your character's semblance is the most free-form part of their creation. You'll need to work with your GM in order to make something fun, interesting, and, of course, balanced. To this end, there are examples and specific semblance archetypes mentioned in the book to give an idea of some of the expected mechanics and the expected power level that a semblance might bring to the table. Your semblance skill checks determine your ability to harness the power of your soul in the moment, and a strong willpower is required for consistent and effective results from that semblance skill check. Lastly, when creating a character, there is another ability each huntsman and huntress has access to, one that, instead of representing one's soul, represents the whole of a person's strength and experiences, their signature action. And speaking of edges, my friend here can once again explain.
A part of your character can also be defined by their signature action. Signature actions are powerful, cinematic custom abilities used in combat, but personally, they are seconded by the character's semblance, and my own opinion, of course. However, these cannot be underestimated. There's a reason why they can only be used once per session, and requires expenditure of ROC, a precious resource we'll explain later in this video. Signature actions can come in all different shapes and sizes. Some could bypass defenses, letting an attack ignore a boss's barrier and armor while also decreasing it by half. All in all, this powerful action can be something that supports your teammates or ruin the day of any unlucky sap that looked at you the wrong way. Happy?
Alright, now let's talk about how to play the game. The Paradigm RWBY system is played using just 10-sided and 6-sided dice in order to make learning and playing the system that much easier. Most of the rolls in the game, be they skill checks, attack rolls, defense rolls, or otherwise, traditionally use 2 10-sided dice to roll as a baseline before any other modifiers. On the other hand, many of the damage rolls and situational bonuses that one can gain and apply through expending resources such as capacity for capacity boosting or aura to empower one's semblance use a 6-sided die to determine their effectiveness. Rest assured, this system has the "I taught my dad how to play and he actually understood it" seal of approval. First and foremost, roleplay and skill checks are the way that your character interacts with the world. Skill checks are made using 2 10-sided dice, or D10, plus an attribute or 2 depending on the skill in question. Out of combat, your skills will help your character navigate social situations, obstacles, puzzles, and whatever other zany situations your adventure lands you in. In combat, on the other hand, your skills will find even more uses. The initiative skill check, in particular, is used to decide the turn order between the players and the NPCs. Other skills can be used to manipulate your environment, fool your enemies, or even give your allies a good toss for a combo attack. Some enemies even have abilities that require a character to roll a skill check in order to defend against them. Each skill in the book has a description and some examples on how to use them, but ultimately your DM will decide what can and cannot be done with a given skill, and how high a roll must be in order to accomplish something. Guidelines for this can be found in the Headmaster's Guide, which is the companion book to the Huntsman's Handbook we're covering here. Oftentimes, rolling well in a skill check in combat will net either the character themselves or an ally advantage on attack or skill of their own. Advantage in the system takes the form of rolling the entire roll complete with modifiers twice, and then picking either result. Whether you give your ally an inspiring one-liner to spur them on, knock an enemy flat on its back to create an opening, or perhaps even cut down an entire tree on an unsuspecting foe, your skills will allow you to turn your creativity into power in the thick of the fight. Once in an encounter and your character's turn comes around, they'll have an action pool that includes 2 major actions and 1 minor action as a baseline. Major actions include things like attacking with your weapon, or utilizing dust to bolster an ally, create an effect, or as an additional form of attack. Minor actions include things like moving, reloading, and all other skill checks besides dust. You can always use a major action to perform a minor action as well, so feel free to mix and match your battle strategy however you like. Beyond these, there are also miscellaneous actions. These are immediate and do not consume an action from your pool, but often are merely ways to interrupt and boost a roll you're already making by spending resources, in order to try and get that little extra edge you might need. Capacity boosting an attack roll or dust skill check, or spending aura to empower a semblance skill check are just some examples of these miscellaneous actions. There are ways to further boost your rolls and even gain an additional major or minor action on your turn as well, not the least of which is by spending the extra special earnable resource the Paradigm RWBY system is built around, Rule of Cool. Such a thing like this deserves an equally cool intro, don't you think?
All right, kiddos, gather around. Time to talk about something called Rule of Cool, or ROC for short. It's the bread and butter of this entire system, so you better listen carefully. Think of it as your Be Awesome points. You rack these bad boys up by pulling off cool hijinks in combat and social scenes, such as flamboyant moves, snappy dialogue. You get the idea. When a fight starts or ends, your ROC hits the reset button. In battle, go wild with your ROC tricks, but outside, you can only use it to roll an extra D10. Take it as a bonus biscuit. The GM's the judge here, handing out ROC when you impress them with your flair. But don't be boring or repetitive, or you get squat. You can hoard up to 5 ROC points, earn them through solo, partner, or team actions. Just remember, no doubling up on the same ROC trick in one go. So, get out there, show off, make it spectacular. Impress me, if you can.
Impress you, huh? I think I can manage that. Like Mr. Bronwyn said, there are various tricks and things you can accomplish with ROC, not the least of which is spending a point of it in order to add an additional D10 to any skill roll you make out of combat. In combat, however, things get a little more interesting. Not only can you use it to add a D10 to an attack or defense at a critical moment, you can spend a point of ROC to buy yourself another minor action on your turn to extend your combo of moves. For a little bit more investment, 2 points of Rule of Cool will net you another major action to get 1 more big hit in. Or, if you have an important plan and want to give yourself the best odds possible, 2 points will net you advantage on everything until the end of the next round. You can even spend those 2 points to make your next attack stagger a foe if it hits, costing them an action on their turn instead of getting another one for yourself. After that, it gets even better. When the action reaches its absolute crescendo, spending 3 whole points of the Rule of Cool you've accumulated over the course of each of your turns will make your next attack inflict extreme damage. This can potentially take down the foe in a single decisive strike. Alternatively, for the tougher enemies that won't go down easy, you can instead burn those 3 points to make your next attack inflict a special status condition from a small list of them, inflicting a permanent status debuff against a statistic of your choice on the big bad in question until the end of the fight. Now, speaking of status conditions, There are various ones, both beneficial and detrimental in the system, that can be given to your friends and foes respectively. Dust is one of the main methods for a character to create these conditions, and any color you have access to can be infused into a weapon attack to inflict a debuff, or manipulated with a dust skill check to grant a boon to an ally instead. Let's take red dust for example. When infused into a weapon attack, this spicy little crystal will inflict stacks of burning based on how high you roll. But when used to assist an ally, it will give them a status called Extinguished that will burn away the next status condition that comes their way, from an enemy ability or otherwise. Making use of conditions and protecting yourself from them will go a long way towards making the impossible possible during your grand adventure. Now that you know a thing or two about how to play, let's start to wrap things up by taking a look at some of the more common specializations that you can choose from when making your character. By the way, whatever weapon forms you picked for the melee and ranged aspects of your weapon during character creation will net you an additional unique specialization for both forms. For instance, the aggressive melee form would give you the aptly named Aggressive Power specialization, giving you a chance to reroll damage and deal some additional damage on top to any enemy standing right next to your target, provided one of the two main d10s you rolled for the attack came up as a natural 10. In regards to the 3 specializations you choose during character creation, I always recommend the additional Dust specialization to players both new and old. This specialization nets you access to 2 different colors of dust right out of the gate, letting you use all the mechanics that require it, with some variety on top to boot. Another good specialization you can pick up is High Capacity. As the name implies, this specialization boosts your maximum capacity resource by 2, regardless of your weapon forms. The more boom, the merrier. There are many more specializations to choose from that affect a bunch of different mechanics and aspects of your character. The combinations are nearly limitless, so feel free to experiment and explore when bringing your character to life. Lastly, before you reach the end, there's one last important thing to talk about. As your grand adventure continues, many challenges are met, and the story of your campaign progresses. You'll level up as time goes on. Leveling up in the Paradigm RWBY system is milestone-based, meaning that the GM is generally expected to grant a level up after a big turning point in the story, usually after meeting and beating a great obstacle. There are exceptions to this guideline, of course, and ultimately your GM decides if and when to level the party up. As a rule of thumb, however, GMs should note that the system is designed to work smoothly up until about level 10. Past that point, you can still play, of course, but things might start to get a little crazy balance-wise. When your character levels up, they'll gain a bonus depending on the level in question. At every even level, you'll gain a point of either HP or aura. Then, at every odd level, you'll increase an attribute of your choice by 1. Finally, at every 4th level, instead of gaining HP or aura, your character will instead gain access to another specialization of their choice. This all comes together to represent their growth as a character, as they develop their skills and identity over the course of the campaign. Alrighty. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in to the Summer of RWBY event, and I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you find yourself interested in wanting to start or join in on an adventure of your own, feel free to hit up the Paradigm RWBY TTRPG network that can be found publicly on Discord as a discoverable server. There, you'll be able to download the player handbook and GM guide for the system, known as the Huntsman's Handbook and Headmaster's Guide respectively. As well, you'll find a list of all the other public Discords people have made for building their own stories and worlds using the system. Alright, have a wonderful day everyone. I gotta go catch up with Crow. See you later.